Hello and welcome to Bricking It. If you've seen our Hogwarts Moments books video, you'll be aware that we have 3 volumes of Quidditch for our Hogwarts castle, and today we're adding a few more. So for those of you who are unaware, we'll just have a quick tour through what's involved in our first 3 volumes of Quidditch books, starting with the centre volume. As you see, it says quality supplies. Got a snitch sticker on the outside, and that's because the interior is everything you'd need for a game of Quidditch. Team flags, a trophy, all the balls, brooms and beaters bats for 2 complete teams of Quidditch players. And in the following 2 volumes, we have 2 complete teams of Quidditch players. So 7 players for Ravenclaw and Gryffindor, and another 7 for Hufflepuff and Slytherin. So these are not canonical players, not necessarily exactly who you'd find in the book, although that isn't true of Gryffindor. I've tried to stick to the most well-known team from the early season, or early seasons, the early stories. And then Ravenclaw is largely made up. We don't have a particularly easily accessible record of who's on the team. And Slytherin also uses some named players. In fact, it uses Flint twice. But as the head prints are different, I decided I could get away with it. Good stuff. First thing we're going to do though is change the outside of one of these books. That's going to be our quality supplies volume. So we've taken our supplies spine apart, because I want to bring it a little more into line with the other 2 books, just so they share some more characteristics a little bit. So we're just going to be removing our Quidditch logo. This is a little bit tricky because when I made it, I didn't really have the right parts. So these are 2 L-shaped bricks, and heretically, it's a very old school idea of putting a sticker across a build join. You used to have them a lot when I was a kid, but these days you don't really see it. But don't tell anyone, will you? So we're just going to add in now a few elements. That's not going to work. In the colours of the referee's podium. Here. And we can put our symbol back in the middle. And we'll finish off some more black and white here, just so that all of our books share a similar aesthetic. Lovely, there we go. So let's recover this book. One side there, one side there. So there's no mystery really in the design of these builds. You can pretty much see every brick, plate, part and clip that I used. So nothing's hidden away. I'm going to put our pages back on top here, so that when we close up, you can see that's supported nicely by that row of brackets and bricks. Lovely. And there we have our first 3 volumes reassembled. I may go so far as to get another black and a white of these half-size tiles, just to fully make it match up with the other 2 books. All right, lovely. So that's part 1 of our process. So now that adjustment's out of the way, it's time to build our new volumes. So we'll start as we do with every book with the spine. I'm just going to build that up. That cover holding brackets on top of our spine. Now, you may think I've erred terribly, but we're actually building the spine of these books inside out. And to facilitate that, we're using these inverted versions of these curved 2x2 plates and 1x2 plates, just so we can get the same look, but it gives us access on the inside to studs rather than anti-studs, which is going to make life a little easier when we come to building our interior. So largely, I suppose it doesn't really matter, but the availability that I had of curved anti-studs in particular colours versus flat anti-studs meant that I went for this inside out option, because it was much easier to get hold of flat tiles in the colours that I needed than it was to get these inside out ones. Oh, no. There we go, so our first spine. Lovely. And for our builds, we're going to need one of those, and also a second volume just the same. So there we go, so 2 spines. We've got our studs on the inside, and this is going to allow us now to just colour these in house colours. I'm sure you've seen the title of the video. You're going to have a shrewd idea of what's going on here. I'm just going to keep you in suspense just briefly while we build up the insides of the spines of the books. For one volume, and for the other. There we go, so there's the 2 spines. Let's move on to the covers. So when I started these builds, and I built them up for the first time, I had them on tan covers that matched the spine, but it just didn't look right, and you'll see why in a moment. So for right now, I've abandoned those, and now we're going to be working with some sand blue spines, which just give us a better look overall. So let's start off. They're both plain, by the way. I'm going to start off with this one first, and this will be our Slytherin bleachers. So this is a build I've wanted to do for quite a while. It's actually a build that inspired me to do the Quidditch teams. And I toyed with lots of different ways of going about this build. And it just turned out that the easiest thing to do, and actually a really effective way to do this, was just buy myself the Quidditch set, which I did. Found a copy on Bricklink, fully complete with its box and all its minifigs for £30, 35 with the postage, which I thought was great. So I ordered it, and when it came, it's pretty much put itself together. It was so easy to make from that Quidditch set. So if you ever want to store away your Quidditch bleachers, this is a very good way of doing it. So these are some parts that didn't come in the Quidditch set. We've just got a bracket, a couple of 1x2s, a 6x2 and a 10x2 on the top in green to represent some grass surface. You don't really see it, you do a little bit once it's all set up, but I just wanted to provide a bit of ground surface. But everything on up from here, barring one brick, is actually straight from our Quidditch set. So we have our 1x2s. Now obviously the dimensions are going to be very different, but the overall effect is largely the same and actually quite pleasing. I'm going to pop all these on here. Now, because I'm working with the bricks that were in the set, I mean, I didn't need to. I could have chosen any bricks to make this up, but I want to try and use what was in the set. Some of these joins are going to be a bit odd. So I've had to add, well, I didn't have to, but I chose to add another brick into the mix here. And this is just going to sit at the back, just to help keep the middle of the build out from the wall of the book. And you can see it just pushes in there, and it just stops it all squishing in. It's fairly sturdy. It's not going to have too much rough treatment, but there we go. And that's the first part of our slithering bleacher. Brown brick. Oh, I told a fib. It wasn't just one brick. There's actually a couple more. So I just added a couple of these jumper plates, bringing 3 studs down to 2, just because it helps to centralise the spectators who are sitting up here. But one of the bricks I did add was an extra one of these grey pieces, because you don't quite get enough to complete the brick build there. I'm going to add the tower feature back in. Simplicity itself. Now, unfortunately, because we're dealing with 4 studs of depth inside one of these books, so we can't really stick out more than just these 2 studs. Obviously, you've got the width of the bracket plate as well to contend with, but actually that fits in perfectly within the size limitations we've got. We'll add another bracket to the top here, which will handily bring us perfectly level with these 2 bricks. Oop, ping that away. Put on our lid. Obviously these are a bit narrower than they are in the main set. What we lose in width here with under the canopy, we gain along the front here. Just going to pop that on here. Now, as you can see, our stud extends above the plane of the book. Now, we don't really want that, but it's fine when it's on display, and it's largely unavoidable once we add in our flag. That sits on top there. But for storage, both of these come off, and they just sit here inside like that when we come to store it away. I quite enjoy that. It gives us a little play feature, a little something to do every time we bring it out. So it's not just unfolding the book, we actually get to have a little tiny mini build experience. And another one is going to be placing our Slytherin flag in there, just like that. So obviously we need spectators, and one that comes with the set is Professor Snape. So he's just going to sit up on the bleachers now. Next gets added in our spine of the book. This just provides a bit of continuation of colour around the corner as we move on to Hufflepuff.